Greetings, one and all. Welcome to the third EIHL Weekly Roundup podcast. Before we begin, a quick reminder that I want to keep viewership as high as possible for this podcast series, or the amount of work I put into researching and writing my scripts for this series won't be as rewarded as I think it should be. I put the most work into this series than any other series that I do. So make sure you tell all the EIHL fans you know about this podcast and keep spreading the word. But moving on, today is the 25th of September. I've just got home from my first day back at uni. So let's talk about some British hockey, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? We shall begin, of course, with comments of the week. In this segment, I take several comments from the last week's podcast to either highlight what you guys thought about the events that took place, the podcast itself, or to laugh at the jokes that you guys make. First up is a comment by Ben Mulholland, which says, overall opinions on Guildford? Well, I think they have made themselves to be a tough team to play against, especially against the top teams in the league like Nottingham, Belfast and Cardiff. However, they lack that ability to consistently finish games in their favour and take home 2 points instead of 1. Whilst this gives them a sympathy point, I think it will bite them harder the more it happens, which I can see being a lot over the course of the season. I stand by what I said in my EIHL prediction video and think Guildford will finish last in the league. We will be talking a little bit more about Guildford later on, but thank you for that comment, Ben. That was a good one that got me thinking and a good one to start with, so thank you very much. Hope you're enjoying this podcast if you're watching. Next up is L Brammer 2002, which says, what team do you support? I am a Nottingham Panthers fan first and a Sheffield Steelers fan second. This is because they are the two EIHL rinks that were closest to me during the seasons before Milton Keynes and Guildford joined the league, and I watched my first ever live hockey game in Nottingham and my second in Sheffield. So they have sentimental value to me, both of them do. And before you say, yes, I know, it's impossible to support both. I've heard fans from both sides being like, oh, odd man rush. That's a bit silly there, mate. You could get hurt. But Panthers are always my number one team. Like, as long as you know which one is your definite number one team, especially when the two teams are playing, as long as I know that I'm a Panthers fan first, then a Steelers fan, it isn't really that difficult at all. But thanks for the comment, Brammer, and thank you for watching. I hope that answered your question. And lastly, for comments of the week, we have Alex Evans, and his comment says, I am loving your content. Oh, thanks. I support the Cardiff Devils. How do you think they will do this season? Well, that's a very good question, actually. The Cardiff Devils, in my mind, are a top 2 or 3 team without a doubt in this league, and I could easily picture them repeating a league title and maybe even getting the playoff title this year. They have solid players in every position, and they have become a tough team to play against, whilst having the ability for one player to steal a game for them in any position, whether it's the goaltender having a shutout, one guy scoring a hat-trick, or a whole line scoring 4 or 5 goals between them the entire game, or the defence shutting down any opposing chances. Like, each position has the chance to lock down and win the game, which is something not many teams have, especially in the Elite League. So I think look for the Cardiff Devils to do some damage again this season. But thank you for your comment, Alex, and thank you for watching. Now we shall move on and look over the scores from the past week of the Elite Ice Hockey League. We shall start with the 19th of September, where one game was played between the Sheffield Steelers and the Dundee Stars, and the score was Sheffield 8, Dundee 2. Fretter, O'Connor and Waugh all notch 3 points as the Steelers demolish the Dundee Stars. This was the first midweek game of the season, and it proves to be a resounding success for Sheffield as they continue their ascent up the league standings. On the flip side, Dundee are still struggling to find any form of consistent success at the start of this season. But they have played a host of different teams of different talent levels. Hopefully the Stars will figure out what sort of team they want to be this season, whether it's a top tier team or a bottom of the league team, and they'll sort out the things that they need to, and they get back on track as the season progresses. But a solid victory by Sheffield gave them another 2 points in the league. I'd be quite happy if I was a Sheffield fan if Fretter, O'Connor and Matthew Waugh all picked up triple points each. So that was the only game for the 19th of September. Then we moved to the weekend games, of course, beginning with the 23rd of September, which was a Saturday. And there was a league game, I should say, between the Manchester Storm and the new Guildford Flames. And the score was Manchester 6, Guildford 5, overtime. So it was an overtime game. Stanit's overtime goal gives the Storm a victory over the Flames with 50 seconds left of the overtime period. Mike Hammond scored 2 more goals in the game for the Storm to give Manchester a bounce-back start to the weekend for the Manchester side, who need to keep winning points if they want to stay competitive with the big boys. On the flip side, Guildford gain another point but can't seem to consistently win games in regulation time, as I said earlier in the questions. Early on in the season, that isn't a huge problem, only taking 1 point as opposed to 0 or 2, but if this persists, it could spell a lot of missed opportunities later in the season, and the situation could come back to haunt the Guildford Flames. However, as I said, it is early days and the Flames are staying competitive. Plus, aside from the Sheffield game last week, they have been a tough team for other Elite League teams to play against, which is that's a very difficult reputation to have. If you might not necessarily be winning points, but if you're a team that when they see you now on the schedule and go, oh, that's going to be a tough one, you're doing something right. You may not be winning games, but you can make it bloody difficult for the other team to beat you, you know. Apart from the Sheffield game, of course, last week where they got beaten 7-1, 7-2, something like that, then they've pretty much kept up that image, and it's a really good image to have, especially in your first year in the league. So, bad luck to Guildford. They pick up a point, though, and well done to Manchester for getting themselves 2 points. Then there was a league game between the Braehead clan and the Nottingham Panthers. The score was Braehead 5, Nottingham 3. Brendan Brooks' 2-goal night and Schofield's 2-assist night give the clan their first league win of the season. I said last podcast that the Braehead clan needed to sort out some of the problems they had to begin the season. And by beating the Panthers, they are showing good signs of improvement. So great job, Braehead, on taking what I said on board, especially in the second period where they scored 3 of their 5 goals. On the other hand, on the flip side, the Panthers have been very up and down so far this season, and they still need to get into shape, or into the shape that has put them top of their group in the Champions Hockey League. As a Panthers fan, I would very much appreciate if they could get a few more wins, I must admit. I think the Panthers, maybe it's the fact that they've played in the CHL before the season started. Maybe it's the fact that they're suffering fatigue a little bit more than some of the other teams. But they've got a bit of a problem in the sense that they can't consistently win games, which, if you want to try and win the league, might be a bit of a problem. However, they managed to drop 2 points here. They've played consistently enough so far to get themselves up near the upper echelon of the league tables. So it's just a question of the Panthers. Are they going to be the team that we've seen play in the Champions Hockey League before the season? Or are they going to be this team that loses to Braehead? Like, Braehead hadn't won a league game so far this year, and Nottingham got beaten by them. So whether that's whether that's Braehead's great play or Nottingham's bad play is up for debate. Maybe it's a bit of both. But Nottingham needs to get on it. It's not good enough losing to a team like Braehead 5-3, you know? Then we had a game between the Belfast Giants and the Sheffield Steelers, which was another league game. And the score was Belfast 3, Sheffield 1. Sylvester's 2-point contribution to the Giants' 3 goals in the first 10 minutes of the game give the Giants the win against the Steelers side. As I predicted last week, the Giants took the first half of the 2-game series between these two teams this weekend in rather convincing style. The Giants got on the board early with the offensive forwards, then locked the game down with their defence and goaltending. Pretty convincing victory for the Giants. I'm rather impressed with how well they played. I mean, Belfast are kind of like the number 4 team in my eyes, and they played a pretty solid game and made sure that they were staying near the top of the standings, which is good. Why not? So these are 2 teams considered to be the best among the league. Definitely 2 of the top 4 teams in the entire league. And to see a close game with a strong goaltending battle after the first 10 minutes between the 2 sides is a very good showcase of the game. These 2 played a game the very next day. I think it was in the other team's arena. We shall take a look at that result a little bit later on. Next, there was a game between Fife and Coventry, which was a league game. The Flyers against the Blaze. And the score was Fife 2, Coventry 0. Gauthier and Healis tally a goal each as the Flyers shut out the Blaze in the Flyers League opener. I'm sure Fife would have liked a few more goals, but what a way to start your league campaign with a shutout. The Blaze were the best team last week in my opinion, but Fife easily brought them right back down to earth as the Blaze drop another game this year. But well played, Fife. You did a very good job. You did good this game. I think they've struggled a little bit with the Scottish Cup. They struggled a little bit with the Challenge Cup matchups. But they might start getting into their groove now, the Fife Flyers. They're starting to feel themselves into this league. It's their first league game of the season, and they had a pretty good showing. Not allowing a goal in your first game of the season is pretty good, especially against a Coventry team that only allowed 1 goal last week. You know, like, they won both their games, they took 4 points the week before, and they only dropped 1 goal. Fife already doubled that in the first game that Coventry had this weekend, so very good job by Fife. I think they need to keep this up if they want to keep going. I think they're a team that could very much be inconsistent so far this season, or they might end up being inconsistent because of some of the problems they have with their team. However, this is a very good start, and let's hope it keeps going, Fife. Then we had a game between the Dundee Stars and the Edinburgh Capitals. It was a Challenge Cup game, and the score was Dundee 4, Edinburgh 3. Olivier Mimar's lone... Is it Mimar? Miramar? Probably Miramar. Olivier Miramar's lone shootout goal gives the Stars a Challenge Cup victory against the continually struggling Capitals team. Dundee have been an up-and-down team so far this season, but it looks like they're starting to find some form of consistency to help them climb up the standings, whether it be Elite League or the Challenge Cup. On the flip side, Edinburgh still haven't learnt how to win a game yet this year. Have they actually won a game so far this season? I don't think they have. In either the League or Challenge Cup, I still think they haven't won. I think they've got 1 point so far this year. And I think it's this game that's given them that 1 point. However, there is plenty of time to get on a roll for Edinburgh, as they need to fix all the areas of their team by the looks of it if they want to actually win a game this season. And not finish in last place like last season. But there is plenty of time, as I said, and it is still early in the season to turn everything around. So good job with gaining momentum, Gundy? Who the hell is Gundy? Good job gaining momentum, Dundee, and bad luck, Edinburgh, on still struggling to get off the ground this season. And lastly, on the 23rd of September, we had a Challenge Cup game between the Milton Keynes Lightning and the Cardiff Devils. And the score was Milton Keynes 5, Cardiff 2. Kearney, Doucette and Hudson's 2-point nights give the Lightning a Challenge Cup victory against the tough Devils team. Milton Keynes once again pick up a Challenge Cup win and do it in a rather convincing style against a top team in the league. Plus, a rather even production across several players means that several players were clicking and helping add to the success of the team in this game. It wasn't just one player that was having the game of his career or something like that. So solid work, Milton Keynes. You're getting wins when most would think that you shouldn't get these wins, especially against a team like Cardiff, and you keep proving the haters wrong, which is always nice to see. On the flip side, Cardiff show the cracks in their game, probably for the first time this season, and drop another Challenge Cup match, making it that little bit more difficult to repeat their Challenge Cup victory. But of course it is still early days though, and Cardiff are a strong team that can bounce back easily, so there's plenty left to play for, but bad luck to the Devils on their game on the 23rd. Then the 23rd ended and the 24th of September began. And we had another set of games, as that was yesterday, Sunday the 24th of September. There was a league game against the Belfast Giants and the Sheffield Steelers once again. It was another game between the two teams, and the result was Belfast 2, Sheffield 0. So Belfast take both games against Sheffield this weekend. Shields and Murphy pot a goal each as the Giants take both games against the Steelers this weekend. I predicted each team to take a game, but the Giants have certainly surprised me with a 4-point weekend with 5 goals scored and 1 against. This is very much putting them in the running to be the top team this week, or my team of the week. That's a full team effort there, a 2-0 victory, with each section of the team, whether forwards, defence or goaltending, pitching in to make sure the team gets the results that they wanted this week. And lo and behold, they pick up a perfect weekend with 4 more points on the league board. Solid weekend for the Giants. Bad luck for Sheffield, who pick up nothing during their weekend's effort. But hey-ho, Sheffield were playing really well before this week. They had to lose at some point. I think the Steelers, they got off to a really good start this season. They've got to lose at some point. No team is going to go completely undefeated this season. It's hockey. That never happens. You know, this isn't like Arsenal, you know. So the fact that they've managed to pick up the win for the Giants, and the fact that Sheffield were doing so well. I mean, of course, they had to lose at some point, and this was the time that they lost. And I mean, it's not as if they lost against a Coventry Blaze. They lost against probably the 4th best team in the league, the Belfast Giants. So why not? Next up, we had another league game, but this time against the Manchester Storm and the Cardiff Devils. And the score was Manchester 6, Cardiff 1. Augur's hat-trick helps the Storm demolish the Devils as Manchester take 4 points over the weekend. Wow, what an upset by Manchester. This is a clear sign that the Storm are going to do their very best to make sure they are a top-flight team in the league this year and not be an 8th place team or a 9th place team or a last-placed team. This was a clear statement game from Manchester and the perfect opponent in last year's league and Challenge Cup champions to make that statement. This was them saying, we are not going to be last in the league anymore. We're going to compete for the title. Watch out for the Manchester Storm. It was a statement game. It was a clear statement game, and they managed to get that statement off. It's not as if they won 2-1. They demolished the Cardiff Devils, a 5-goal differential. And on the flip side, Cardiff carry their woes from Saturday to not pick up a single point this weekend. So 2 of the top teams in Cardiff and Sheffield had very, very bad weekends this weekend by not gaining a single point. Not a very good weekend for the Devils, but you have to lose some games at some point, similar to what I was saying about Sheffield previously. And the results we have seen so far this season further prove that any team can beat any other team in the Elite League. I think this more so than, say, last year or the year before, except for the Edinburgh Capitals, of course, they're still kind of struggling. But I think with a game like this as well is a clear example that any team has the opportunity to beat any other team. Just because you're a Cardiff Devils doesn't mean you can't lose to a Milton Keynes or Fife Flyers, you know? Like, that's true of hockey anywhere. But very much so from the EIHL so far this season, as the top teams are being toppled, in some cases with very little problem, and the bottom teams are finding wins when they need them, and they probably shouldn't get them in the first place. So good job on making a statement, Manchester Storm, and bad luck for the weekend, Cardiff. Hopefully you'll bounce back next weekend. Then we had a league game between the Nottingham Panthers and the Guildford Flames. These two teams played, I think, 2 weekends ago, or last weekend. And it was a overtime victory for the Nottingham Panthers in that game. But this game, they went up against each other in the Guildford Spectrum, and the score was Nottingham 3, Guildford 2 in a shootout. Josh Scharler's shootout goal gives the Panthers 2 points this weekend after the Flames tie the game late in regulation time. As I said in the comments of the week at the start of this podcast, the Flames are a tough team for the Panthers to play against, but once again the Panthers struggle to lock down the game. However, they do manage to get 2 points over Guildford, who only pick up 1. But that said, the Panthers are supposed to be one of the best teams, who have beaten SC Burn a few weeks earlier than this game, but have struggled against a new team and a weak Scottish team this weekend. They struggled against a new Guildford team and a weak Braehead team this weekend. The Panthers need to fix their defensive problems if they want to keep near the top of the table. There's too much going on there. They've been pretty strong in the Champions Hockey League this year, and I know I keep going back to this, but they're doing really well there. They're doing better than they should have done. So why are they struggling here? Are they so focused on making sure they get through to the group stages of the knockout stages of the Champions Hockey League? Is that something that's playing in their heads? Are they focused on the pressure and trying to overcome that pressure? Like, why are they doing so well there but not here? Like, surely this would be easier competition. They're playing against Guildford and Braehead. They've beaten Mountfield and SC Burn, for goodness sake. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And especially as a Panthers fan that wants to see them do really well this year, I'm just kind of like, Nottingham, what's going on? Like, you can play so much better than that. Now, there's been a lot of talk about their defence being the main issue towards this. Why have they become such a problem all of a sudden? Sort it out, Nottingham. What's going on? But on the flip side, the Flames are still struggling to shut out games. And they're still proving to be a tough group for any team to play against, either home or away. And they're still picking up 1 point here or there, which might make the difference between the playoffs and missing the playoffs down the line. But they are struggling to shut out games and win them after coming back to tie it. They tied this in the last 3 minutes of the game, this one against Nottingham this weekend. But they couldn't finish it. They couldn't finish the game. Just as Nottingham couldn't hold the lead and finish it, Guildford couldn't get the tie and finish it, you know? So it's a double-edged sword for the Flames, but they're keeping themselves in the discussion in the league. So a 2-point night for the Panthers, and the Flames pick up a stray point. So relatively decent job by both teams. One team had to win and one team had to lose. That's the beautiful thing about hockey. But it would be nice if the Panthers could sort it out, and especially for Guildford fans, if they could just try and get that second point sometimes. I'm just going to take a quick sip of water and we'll carry on. Hydration is key, ladies and gentlemen. Right, so next up we have a league game between the Braehead Clan and the Edinburgh Capitals. And the score was Braehead 3, Edinburgh 1. Schofield, Brooks and Oslansky each score a goal as the Clan take a victory against a still struggling Edinburgh team. The Braehead Clan, who are a team I picked to struggle this season, have picked up 4 solid points this weekend after a poor start to the season and have got themselves back on track in my eyes. Whatever the Clan did in practice this week seems to have worked, so good job Braehead. You have proved me wrong this week. Let's see if you keep proving me wrong as the season continues. On the flip side, Capitals. What's going on here? You guys have really dropped the ball early this season. As I've said previously, if they don't get their act together, this is going to be a long season for Capitals fans. And judging by how the Caps have played recently, buckle yourselves in, Capitals fans. You've got a tough 17-18 season to come. There just seems to be no consistency from any position, especially forwards, or any sense of urgency from a team that is quickly sinking to the bottom of the pile within the first 10 games of the season, for goodness sake. I'm going to end up saying this a lot during the season, but whatever is going on in Edinburgh needs to be fixed, and fixed as soon as possible if the Caps want to stay competitive this year. Need better players? Try and find some. There's probably loads of free agents out there. Current players not playing to their full potential? Sort them out or get rid of them. The change has to come from management and feed down to the players. Get it going, Edinburgh. Come on, lads. I want to see you win at least one game. And lastly, between the games this week, we had Milton Keynes and the Coventry Blaze in a Challenge Cup matchup. And the result was Milton Keynes 7, Coventry 4. Kearney's hat-trick powers the Lightning past the Blaze as Milton Keynes take 2 Challenge Cup points over the weekend. Coventry go from my team of the week last week to dropping both games the next. Talk about inconsistency, Coventry. But to be honest, this inconsistency is what I expect from the Blaze this year as a team that I see to live near the bottom of the league table. To me, this is the sort of game as to why I have come to this conclusion about the Blaze. Their offense can pot a few goals, but their defense and goaltending isn't quite there compared to other EIHL teams. It's only a Challenge Cup game though, isn't it? It's only a Challenge Cup game though. Nothing too crazy. But on the flip side, Milton Keynes keep themselves relevant in the league and aren't just the new team by putting up 7 goals and presenting a good overall game to give them a perfect weekend with 4 points. Milton Keynes, I must admit, have impressed me very much so, as they have kept the early momentum from the season going. They started off pretty well, and that hasn't disappeared as the next few weeks have rolled on. They seem to want to keep pushing the top teams in the league and making it tough for teams to get a win against them, even to the point where they'll go and win themselves. So good job by the Lightning, I've been very impressed with you, as I think now officially the closest EIHL team to where I live. I'm quite happy that they're doing quite well. Moving on, so another week in the Elite League has been cemented in the record books. Let's take a look at the Elite League standings as they stand after the last week. So, sorry, hydrating myself again. So, Manchester lead the Elite Ice Hockey League table with 8 points on the season. Belfast and Nottingham are tied second with 6 points. Sheffield are third with 5 points. Milton Keynes, Coventry, Braehead and Cardiff are all tied fourth with 4 points. Guildford are fifth with 3 points. Fife are sixth with 2 points. And Dundee and Edinburgh are tied last with 0 points. Now on to the Challenge Cup standings, which look a little bit like this. Sheffield still lead Group A with 4 points. Braehead and Manchester are tied in Group A second with 2 points. And Nottingham is last in Group A with 0 points in 1 game. Dundee lead Group B of the Challenge Cup group stages with 6 points. Belfast are second in Group B with 5 points. Fife are third in Group B with 2 points. And Edinburgh are last with 1 point in Group B, the only point they have got so far this season. And Group C, Milton Keynes lead Group C with 4 points. Guildford and Cardiff are tied second in Group C with 2 points. And Coventry are last with 0 points. Now to the current league leaders in the various categories. With regard to skater stats, Manchester's Mike Hammond, Matt Becker and Dane Byers are all tied with 9 points on the season so far. Sheffield's John Armstrong leads the league with 5 goals. Manchester's Dane Byers leads the league with 8 assists. And Manchester's Lyndon Springer leads the league with 56 penalty minutes already. Wow, talk about chalking up the minutes early on in the season, Springer. And then to goalie stats. Manchester's Mike Clement leads the league with 4 wins. Coventry's Kevin Nastyuk leads the league in losses with 3. Cardiff's Thomas Murdy leads the league with goals against of 1. Fife's Andy Isles leads the league in goals against average with 0. Manchester's Mike Clement leads the league in saves with 149. And lastly, Fife's Andy Isles leads the league in save percentage with 1. So as you can see, Manchester are very much dominating quite a lot of the categories at the moment, which is very reflective of how well they've been playing. That said, they have played several more games than the majority of the Elite League, especially in the actual league as opposed to Challenge Cup. So maybe once the rest of the teams are up to their level in terms of games played, the point distribution will be different. We won't see 3 Manchester Storm players at the top of the league in points, but we'll have to see what goes on there, I guess. Next up, let's take a look at the latest news stories over the last week. To be honest, there aren't many news items, as it seemed to be a rather slow news week this week, but there are a few things to cover, so get ready for a quick news session. The playoff and Challenge Cup final dates have been announced as our first piece of news. The EIHL playoffs will take place on the 7th and 8th of April 2018 at Nottingham's Motorpoint Arena, whilst the Challenge Cup final will take place on the 4th of March at Ice Arena Wales in Cardiff. Nottingham, of course, is holding the event for the second straight year, which saw the final 4 EIHL teams compete for the playoff championship, with Sheffield taking a 6-5 double overtime win against Cardiff in a game that lasted 4 total hours. Wow. Also, the Challenge Cup will once again be held in Cardiff for the second straight year, which saw the Devils win the cup last season in a 3-2 win over Sheffield. So the venues and dates have been decided, but the tickets will not be released until supposedly January. I think more information and the potential release of tickets for the finals of either Challenge Cup or playoffs will be released in January. And the playoff format will be announced in due course for the Elite League playoffs. I don't imagine it will be that much different from last year, but they're going to take a look at the format that took place last year, see if they need to change it at all, and they will tell us at some point. Hopefully we'll get some sort of idea over the new year. That said, we didn't really get any sort of confirmation on it until like a month or two before, so maybe we'll see it in about March time, who knows. Then we had some rulings by the Department of Player Safety. They decided to take a look at 3 players. When I last checked this, I think they're currently investigating a couple more from the games that took place this weekend. Haven't been notified on that. I checked the EIHL website. There wasn't any information of that at the time of this recording. But we've got a couple of guys due to matches the previous week or the midweek game, potentially between Sheffield and Dundee, although there aren't any of their players here. So that's complete rubbish, and I don't know why I said that. So, the Department of Player Safety rulings. Milton Keynes player Kevin King was assessed a match penalty for kneeing at 56 minutes and 22 seconds of the third period in the Lightning's game against Braehead on the 16th of September. The Department of Player Safety has decided to uphold the penalty, which carries a 1-game suspension, and the DOPS has increased the suspension by a further 1 game, making it a 2-game suspension. King already served the first suspension on the 17th of September versus the Manchester Storm, and he missed the next game against Cardiff on the 23rd of September also. So Kevin King has served his suspension. He got automatic 1 game, then an extra game added by the league. So hopefully we won't see any more of that from the Milton Keynes captain. Next, Edinburgh Capital's Marek Tverdon was assessed a match penalty for abuse of officials at 51 minutes and 56 seconds of the third period in the Capitals game versus the Five Flyers on the 16th of September. The Department of Player Safety decided to uphold the decision, which carries an automatic 1-game suspension, and the DOPS increased the suspension by a further 2 games to make it a 3-game suspension overall. King served the first game of the suspension on the 17th of September when the Caps played the Giants, and he missed the Caps games on the 23rd and 24th of September against the Stars and the Braehead clan respectively. And finally, Coventry Blazes' Marc-Olivier Vallerand was assessed a 2 plus 10 minute checking from behind penalty at 1 minute 15 of the first period. However, the Department of Player Safety has decided that no further action will be taken against the Coventry Blaze forward. So, 2 guys getting a suspension of at least 2 games. 1 guy gets a 2-game suspension, another one gets a 3-game suspension, and 1 gets let off with no further action being taken. So, it's nice to know that the Department of Player Safety is still taking a look at these things. However, there's a lot of checking from behind penalties that are going on. It's either a case of they need to enforce this more and give more suspensions for these checking from behind penalties, or the refs need to maybe take a proper look at these penalties that are taking place and maybe not have that as the assessment of the penalty. Maybe it's just a boarding penalty or a cross-checking penalty, something like that. So far, we've seen many guys get 2 plus 10 minute checking from behind penalties. Like, they've been very frequent in the league so far. So either enforce them properly or give them the right penalty if it isn't that, you know? And with the news, finally, David Clarke of the Nottingham Panthers has become the 2nd player in the league history to hit 700 points in the Elite Ice Hockey League. 700 points! Wow! The big 700th point came from Clarke's assist on a goal by Ivan Mosey, which was the Panthers' first goal against Braehead on Saturday night during their 5-3 loss. The fact that Clarke has become one of only 2 players to hit that number ever in the league is just astounding and deserves the utmost respect from any fan of the league, especially the Panthers and myself, where he has played his entire career. Of course, Clarke is getting towards the end of his career. He's on the wrong side of 30, but he will leave a historic legacy in the Elite Ice Hockey League that the league might never forget due to his impressive numbers. No matter which team you support, that is something pretty special in my opinion. So congrats on an amazing achievement by an incredible player and all-round great guy. Way to go, Clarky! You're an inspiration to British hockey fans all over the country. 700 points. Wow. That is just incredible. Okay, so that's the news done. Bit of water for the old odd man Rush's throat. And we are done with the news there. Next up, we have my Game of the Week. Once again, this is my award for the best game of the week, in my opinion. Makes sense, hence why it's called Game of the Week. My Game of the Week this week goes to the Braehead Nottingham game. The Clan get their first win of the 17-18 league season. David Clarke becomes the 2nd player to hit 700 points in the EIHL. And the game itself was very hard fought and shows some great talent on display. Unfortunately, neither team has a live stream for the game, but the highlights should be available on either team's YouTube channel, so check it out if you get the chance, ladies and gentlemen. I feel like I need to burp. Nothing really there. Next up, we have prediction time. This is where I go through the games for the upcoming week after the 25th of September and before whatever the next Monday is, and say who I think's going to win and why in each of these games. So, we shall start with the 27th of September. We have 3 games this Wednesday night. The first proper midweek matchup. And we start with a game between the Dundee Stars and the Cardiff Devils. And I'm going to say the Cardiff Devils for this one. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder, especially having lost 2 games this weekend, not gaining anything for their efforts this weekend. I think they're going to have a chip on their shoulder. They're going to be pretty upset with how they played this week. And they're going to pick themselves up some points against a struggling Dundee side. Then there's a game between Sheffield and Milton Keynes, and I think the Sheffield Steelers are going to take this one. Not because they're the better team on paper, but the same situation as Cardiff. They are a team that should have done better than they did last weekend, and they're going to have a chip on their shoulder. They're not going to be very happy with the result that took place. They're not going to be happy that they came away with 0 points last weekend. So they're going to be very physical, I think. They're going to be very quick, and they're going to want to get that victory for the Sheffield Steelers. Then there is a game between the Nottingham Panthers and the Belfast Giants. This is a very, very interesting matchup between these two teams. And I think Belfast are going to take it. I mean, Nottingham aren't in the position at the moment to be able to take down a team like Belfast, in my opinion. Maybe something will happen during practice this week that will sort them out. I think that would be quite useful for them, definitely. But I think it's one of those things that Belfast, they're starting to get on a bit of a roll. You know, they're starting to pick up the pressure. They're starting to get this going. And they beat Sheffield twice last year. Let's see how they do this year. Or last week. Let's see how they do this week. I definitely think they could do some damage, especially against the Nottingham Panthers. Then on the 30th of September, which is the Saturday, we have a game between the Cardiff Devils and the Braehead Clan. And I think the Cardiff Devils are going to win it. Yep, I think the Cardiff Devils are going to take this victory without a doubt. I think it's going to be a very close fought game. However, Cardiff, once again, chip on their shoulder, you know. Very much a chip on their shoulder. So, I don't think they'll take anything less, you know. I do not think they'll take anything less for their troubles if they can help it. I think the Cardiff Devils will go, nope, you're not getting any chance there, gentlemen. We're just gonna blow past you and goodbye Braehead, essentially. So Braehead might have a bit of a tough weekend this weekend. And then the last game on the 30th of September is the Sheffield Steelers against the Coventry Blaze. And I'm going to go the Coventry Blaze on this one. Very similarly to the reason why I think Sheffield and Cardiff are going to win. They're a team that struggled last weekend. They're a team that this weekend, I should say. They're a team that the weekend before had a very good showing. I think this is a question. This game will be very much, what do Coventry want to play like this season? Do they want to be a team that's very inconsistent, or do they want to be a team that scores 7 goals and allows 1 every weekend? I think this is a very big game for Coventry. Sure, it's very early on in the season. There's not really a huge amount riding on it, except the kind of impact they want to make on the season. Like, do Coventry want to be a strong team and want to compete? I don't know. Let's see if they beat the Sheffield Steelers, because then some people might think, yeah, okay, I see that. And then we have some games on the 1st of October. These are the last games for next weekend on the Sunday. We start with a game between the Coventry Blaze and the Sheffield Steelers. So they both play twice this weekend. And I think the Sheffield Steelers are going to take this one, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's going to be a Steeler victory for the fact that they will have lost against Coventry the night before. I think they'll split the 2 games between each of the teams. Then again, I said that about Belfast and Sheffield last weekend. Didn't turn out so much. But I think Sheffield, they're a good enough team to take at least 2 points from the Coventry Blaze this weekend. Then we have a game between the Manchester Storm and the Belfast Giants. And I think Belfast are going to take this one. Yes, I think the Belfast Giants are going to take this one against Manchester. Manchester have gotten off to a relatively decent start this year. And I think Belfast are going to bring them right back down to earth. I think Belfast could potentially take 4 more points this weekend to go 8 points in 2 weekends. 8 points out of 8. I really think they could. Belfast are looking like a very strong team this year. Much more so than some of the other top teams right now. Maybe it's just they've started off well and they'll get fatigue as the season goes on. But that said, Manchester, they've also had a very good start to the season. This will be a statement game for either of these teams as well. Which team wants to be one of the front runners of the league? Will it be the Manchester Storm finally, after however many years they've been in the league? Or will Belfast say, we've had enough of being one of the top 3 teams. We want to be the top team. So this will be a very interesting matchup, and I cannot wait to see what happens. And then, penultimately, we have a game between the Guildford Flames and the Braehead Clan. And I think the Braehead Clan are going to take this one, ladies and gentlemen. I think that Guildford might be able to get a point from it. They might take it to overtime or shootout, but I do think that the Braehead Clan will take this. They had a great weekend this weekend. They would have lost against Cardiff the night before, and they'll want a bit of revenge, and they'll want to try and take advantage of the new teams. I think Braehead, they turned a couple of heads. They turned my head definitely to start the last weekend or this weekend that we've just had. Like they got my attention, you know. Braehead are there like, yep, we're still here. We'll just rack up the wins whether you want to see us to or not. So let's see if the Braehead side that play Guildford want to be the ones that started the season off with 2 losses, or the one that got 2 straight wins last weekend. But I'm going to go with Braehead on this one, but I think it could go to overtime or a shootout, and Guildford could pick up yet another point. And then lastly, we have a game between the Dundee Stars and the Milton Keynes Lightning. And I think Milton Keynes are going to take this game, if I'm honest, ladies and gentlemen. I think the Lightning have once again played very well. They've played very strongly in the Challenge Cup matchups. They need to do a little bit more on the league games, but I think they're going to do it. Dundee still a very up and down team. Milton Keynes seem to be the better team right now. They're flying at the moment. They're doing a really good job. And I think Lightning will strike more than once against this Dundee team as the game goes on. So I'm going to go Milton Keynes with them. It's nice that the majority of the predictions that I make are usually okay. If anybody has actually kept like an eye on my predictions and how successful I've been, I'd love to know. That would definitely feature in the comments of the week next week. I'd definitely love to know like what percentage of games I predict right between all of this stuff, because that would be fascinating. It'll be like, oh man, Rush, you got 10% last week. Oh, okay. Oh, but you got 100% this week. Nice. Like, I'd be really interested to know that. So if anybody's been keeping track or anybody wants to keep track, do. I'd love to hear it, and let me know in the comments below. And lastly, before we finish up this podcast with a very slow news week, but lots of games played, the one to watch. I know, I forgot to pick one last week, and now you are just realising that I forgot to pick the one to watch last week, and you are furious. But ladies and gentlemen, don't worry. We are back this week with a new one to watch. This is, of course, where I tell you to go and watch a game of one of the ones this next week, and hopefully you go and do it. So, let's see this. So, the one to watch this week for me will be the Nottingham and Belfast game. Yes, I know, I'm featuring some of the top teams again. When I wrote this, I thought Guildford and Milton Keynes were playing this weekend, but they're not. So, I think that's next weekend, or the weekend after the games this next weekend coming up. So, that will be my one to watch for then. I'll have to double check that. But I think the Nottingham and Belfast game will be the one to watch this weekend, as it's a Belfast team that are looking very strong, a Nottingham team that is showing a lot of holes and a lot of problems in their game. Which one will come out on top? Which one will be the team that takes the win and makes a statement to the rest of the league? Who knows? Maybe it's Belfast, but maybe it's Nottingham. We'll find out. And that is all for this week's Elite Ice Hockey League Weekly Roundup podcast. Make sure to leave your comments regarding the last week below for a chance to be featured in the next week's podcast. But thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.